Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for Rainey's Black Bottom. So what Rainey's Black Bottom is essentially about is basically we center on a 1920s recording session with the artist Rainey, but most notably with her band that is waiting for her because she has been late. Basically, we focus on them trying to get through all of these songs, get through the set list that was approved by the people that own the venue that they're in, and we also center on the character of Levy, who has a lot of different ideas as to how he wants to end up doing these songs, which causes him to clash a lot with his bandmates and could potentially risk his position in the band moving forward. So Rainey's Black Bottom overall, I was very excited for this film. Not just because of, obviously, the sad reasons, because of, this being Chadwick Boseman's, final performance and things like that, but even before that, I was very excited to see how this film would turn out. I loved the cast. I really liked the premise behind it, and it also, I believe, is coming off the heels of Fences. It's from the same playwright, and I was a big fan of the movie adaptation of Fences, so I was very excited to see how this film would really turn out, and especially when it was getting all these awards recognition and things like all of these rave reviews and a lot of people saying it's going to get recognition for awards and things like that. I was very excited to check it out, and it absolutely lived up to the hype for me. Rainey's Black Bottom is easily one of the most effective, but also I think one of the most important films of the entire year that I think is really going to start a very important conversation that a lot of films just don't really do, and it does it in a very special way, but we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And I think going into this film, that's definitely one of the things that is going to be a highlight for many people. I mean, this film is very much an actor's showcase. Top to bottom, everyone gives amazing performances, but let's first talk about Viola Davis, who does, of course, play Rainey, and what an amazing performance this really is for her. I mean, Viola Davis giving an amazing performance, that's really nothing new, but her performance in this, I think, is truly one that is going to stick out, because it is a clear transformation physically. She obviously, is wearing a fat suit and things like that, but you really are convinced by her role in this film, and I think she does a really good job here as well of portraying this character, someone like Rainey that is so loved by many, but yet has stayed humbled in that way. She doesn't love a lot of what's happening, and I think Davis portrays that very well. It's an excellent performance by her. She's not in the movie as much as you really would expect her to be, but I think Davis really does make the most out of all of her screen time. Whenever she's there, she pretty much is commanding everyone else in the room. She is a huge scene stealer throughout the entire film, and I just loved what she ended up doing here. I think this is absolutely one of her best performances. I think she definitely is going to possibly get that second Oscar. I could definitely see it happening here, because this is a very different kind of performance from her, but one that is all the more impressive, I think, because of it. But the real standout of this movie, and someone that I think everyone is going to be talking about, is, of course, Chadwick Boseman, which it is a damn shame that this has to be his last performance, because this easily, I think, is the best performance that he ever gave. I mean, his character of Levy is someone that is so complex, but yet he's going through so much as a character, and he also is so inspirational in that way. He has these huge dreams, and Boseman is able to do so much with this character. Someone that has really gone through a lot of trauma in his life, a lot of which he very much is not over, and you can very much tell that throughout the movie. And I think Boseman is just so incredible in the way that he gets so swept up in all these emotions, but also the way he's able to make you care so deeply for someone like Levy. You really do feel for his character. You understand the kind of dreams that he wants to pursue, but you also understand how insurmountable so much of it is, and how this is not really something that is going to work out for him, but he keeps the hope that it will, and you find yourself getting really attached to the character, and I think Boseman just did such an amazing job in this film, and he was always one of those actors that I think was just always able to transform into these characters so well. It always kind of felt like he got lost into the role, and that's no different for the character of Levy. This is one of those characters where you do not see Boseman on screen once. You really do see him transform into this character, and again, it's really unfortunate that he had to go out when he did, because he had so much more left in him, and similar to how Levy as a character has so much more left in him, he's just starting to live up to his true potential. It makes his performance here that much more saddening, but taking the death out of the equation, this is still such an incredible performance, and definitely some of the best work he's ever done. He has about 2 monologues in this movie that just left me absolutely speechless. I've been thinking about them pretty much since I've seen the movie, and I just thought he did such an amazing job in this film. It might just be the best performance I've seen so far this year, and I definitely would be rallying for Boseman to get that award. Not just because of his death, but because he absolutely does deserve it, and I think will definitely go down as one of the best performances given in a film like this for sure. He was just absolutely just sensational here. I loved his performance in this film. But in terms of the rest of the cast, I think everyone else does do a really good job. Colman Domingo is particularly a big standout. You know, he's someone who, he's very by the book, and he recognizes that there's some things going on that he's not happy with, but he just kind of deals with it, and I thought that he did a really great job. Glynn Turman is great here. Michael Potts, I really did enjoy him. Jonny Coyne as well is playing a very difficult character. He's playing one of the only white characters in this movie who you can tell is very bigoted. He's very discriminatory towards these characters, but he has to do it in a very charming way, and I think he did that very well here. He really sold that throughout this movie, and I just found myself impressed by the entire ensemble here. I think the entire cast does an amazing job, and definitely one of the best things about this film. But now let's get to the directing and the writing here, because here's the thing. I've seen a lot of people talk about the acting in this movie, and it's amazing, but not enough people are giving credit here to George C. Wolfe's directing, because I think it is definitely a spectacle to behold. This is not a typical film director. He has not directed a lot of films before. He's mainly just a playwright, but it really does not show here. It feels like one of the few transitions that really does work from stage to film, because his directing here is really well done. Obviously, you can tell there's a lot of passion behind this movie. You really do understand, you know, how deeply he cares about this material, but you also really can understand what he's trying to do in this movie. You know, he's really trying to tell a story about race, but more so how race affects the entertainment industry, and kind of relating that to artists of today. How, you know, artists of today want to do more challenging material, and a lot of the time, yes, it is more respected today, but there are still those times where it is frowned upon, and that's something that Wolfe is trying to touch upon here. The idea that black artists, you know, just were not given the tools they needed to succeed, and I think he did a really good job with directing that here. You feel so much passion, you feel so much emotion behind this story, and I just really loved his directing throughout this entire film, and you really kind of forget, at least I did, that this is a play. It feels like this works as a movie, and I think it's because of Wolfe's direction that really makes it work. It can be very hard to make that transition. I've seen a lot of films just not able to do it. You know, they have a very successful play, but just as a movie, it doesn't feel like one. But I think this is one of the rare cases where it very much does feel like a movie. Yes, it's definitely showier in terms of acting, but it really does work, and I think his directing is a big reason for that. But the screenplay here as well is just so good to this film. Ruben Santiago-Hudson's writing is just one that is, I think, such a tour de force in terms of writing. Razor sharp dialogue throughout this entire film. The entire film consists of pretty much just dialogue, and that can get very boring, but he finds a way to make it so riveting throughout. All the conversations these characters are having, I was just getting so lost in throughout the film. I found myself growing so attached to these characters in such a little amount of time, and there's so many conversations that they have, from little perspectives to from how they want to play a song to how they care about far more important issues. And I think that's something that he did a very good job with directing in this film. Hudson really does take the time to get you to know these characters. And I know obviously this is an adaptation of a play, but I think he did a good job with telling the story in a way that felt natural, because obviously this is a play, it's very much in one location, but you still find yourself so attached to the characters. Levy especially, I think, is going to be a big relatable character for many, because he's someone that he wants to do something beyond this band. He doesn't want this to be the last thing that he does. He has these big dreams. He wants to perform music of his own, but it's just not in a time where people are receptive of it. People are kind of laughing at it. They don't really take it seriously, but you can tell that Levy really does. And you also understand why this means so much to him, why certain things in this film are so much more meaningful to him than to the other characters. Other characters just kind of pass it off, but to Levy, you can tell there's something that is just far more just nagging at him throughout the film. There are things that are really troubling him in this movie, and the film does a really good job of delving into that. Rainey is, of course, the character that, you think the film revolves around, but it really is Levy's movie, and I think you really find yourself getting attached to that character throughout this film. But I think the film also does a really good job of slowly revealing things about Levy. From the beginning, we know that there's clearly something that is eating away at him, and as the film goes on, it becomes more and more apparent as to what that really is and why he is, so deeply hurt by what's going on, and why he isn't just gonna lay down and die like a lot of these other characters are. And I really did like that about Levy as a character, and where he ended up going especially, I was not expecting. It was a very dark, but I think a very realistic ending for this character, because a lot of this film, while it is covering racism, a lot of it's also trying to cover the idea of artistic control, specifically when it comes to Rainey, someone that is so respected and treated so differently than her bandmates, but she's also very aware of that. She understands why she is this way. It's not because of the fact, there's a really great scene where she talks about how it's not because of the fact that she is this very respected woman. It's because she's talented. It's because she can sing. It's because she makes them records. And if she wasn't doing that, she wouldn't be as respected. And I think this film starts a larger conversation about, are black celebrities, beloved because they're talented, or because of who they, is it just because of their talent, or is it because of who they are? I think that's a very interesting conversation I think this film's trying to start, and I really did appreciate that overall, and I think that's something else that the film dives into very well, but also just seeing the different perspectives that these characters have. This is a band that is restricted to only playing a certain amount of songs, and if they aren't playing these songs, they can no longer perform in this, they can no longer record in this studio, and it's crazy to think about, but that is something that very much happened. They were only told to play songs that the crowd would enjoy, that would basically, appeal to white audiences, and you really do see throughout this film how frustrating that really is, how much they're struggling with that. But you also do see how Rainey is getting around a lot of things that others wouldn't. She's very adamant that her nephew ends up being the announcer, that he announces, the song, but he has a speech impediment, so he can't really do that. And so you kind of see them navigating that throughout the film, and how, while everyone else is patient, Levy is getting more and more excruciated throughout the film with that. And I thought that was something else that the film just did a really good job with. The way that it builds tension throughout the film is really well done. And again, it all really is attributed to Ruben Santiago-Hudson. There's a lot of things I think he's covering very well here. There's a lot of issues he's trying to tackle, and I think all of them he really does tackle head on, and I was very impressed by him. But the cinematography of this film, look, there's a lot of things I wanted this film to be nominated for, but production design absolutely needs to be one of them, because the look and feel of this film is just perfect. You really do feel like you're in this 1920s setting of Chicago. The look and the feel of everything, they do a really good job of that. And the recording studio itself, you're there throughout a lot of the movie, and you really feel kind of trapped here. It feels like you're never gonna leave this recording studio. You're stuck with them, and I think the film does a really good job with that overall. The recording studio itself kind of serves as a sense of tension, a place where these characters don't feel incredibly safe. It feels like they're limited in that way to their safety, and you know, I really did like seeing that throughout this film. I thought the cinematography was very well done here. The soundtrack as well is fantastic. There isn't too much of a score. When the score is played by Branford Marsalis, it's very good, but I also really enjoyed getting to hear these songs from Rainey herself. I'm not too familiar with her as an artist, but I really found myself loving the soundtrack here. The movie opens up with this song that she's singing, and right off the bat, I mean, I've been listening to it a lot since then, and I think that the soundtrack here is really good. But the editing is also something that I very much have to commend, because the movie's only about 92 minutes long. Without credits, it's only like an hour and like 87 minutes, but it's able to cover so much in that time, and it really is because of how focused it is on this story, how focused it is on these topics that it's trying to cover. It never tries to add any sort of filler. It never tries to do anything. It never tries to be too overstuffed with anything. And it never feels like anything is underwritten as a result. Like, it feels like Levy, especially as a character, is so well developed. Same with Rainey. I mean, the film just does such a good job in terms of its pacing, and that's one of the things I really loved about this film. But the ending of this movie as well is one that I don't think is receiving enough credit. The ending of this film is nothing short of one of the most powerful things that I have seen all year. It's something that was not in the original play, and I can't believe that it wasn't, because I can't think of any better way for this movie to end than the way that it does here. It's gonna be something that I think might polarize some people, but for me, I think it was the best possible way to end this movie, and I really can't think of a better way for them to wrap things up than they really did, because it really is just, again, really diving into these issues and really showing what would happen in the situation, especially with the way things wrap up in this movie. Things do get quite violent in this film, which I wasn't expecting, and the way things do wrap up, I thought was pretty much perfect in that regard. So again, there's so much I'm loving about this movie. Is there anything that really does bring it down? Well, I will say there are some characters here that I just felt were a little bit underserved, particularly when it comes to the character of Slow Drag, this double bass player played by Michael Potts. He just doesn't really have a ton to do in this movie. He's here and he's effective, but I just wish they could have done a little bit more with him overall, and I think the film would be that much more effective. But everyone else has so much to do, it really isn't that much of an issue. Overall, Rainey's Black Bottom is one of the most impactful and powerful films that I have seen all year. It has some truly extraordinary performances from Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman. Boseman especially, I think, gives one of the best performances you will see all year. It's got a really great supporting performance from Colman Domingo as well. It has a really well-written screenplay that will honestly make you forget that this is based on a play. It's one of the best adaptations that I've seen in a very long time. It tackles some very heavy issues that other films are just kind of afraid to, and it does it, I think, in a very fearless and very expansive manner, and I think the film did it very well in that way. It was very insightful. It really gives you that 1920s type feel, and it's just one of those movies that I think you need to see as soon as possible. You know, we really are coming down to the end of the year when it comes to must-see movies, and I think this is absolutely one of them. This is without a doubt one of my favorite movies of the entire year, and I am going to give Rainey's Black Bottom overall an A. But over, guys, in my review of Rainey's Black Bottom. Let me know if you guys saw this movie. Lift your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.